Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, Text 73. Tavadasyamaham jage Tavadasyamaham jage Tatrapi brahmavadinam Tatrapi brahmavadinam Shushrushayanusangena Shushrushangayanusangena Praptoham brahmaputratam Praptoham brahmaputratam Tavadasyamaham jagye Tatrapi brahmavadinam Shushrushayanusangena Praptoham brahmaputratam Tavadasyamaham jage Tatrapi brahmavadinam Shushrushayanusangena Praptoham brahmaputratam Tavadasyamaham jage Tatrapi brahmavadinam Shushrushayanusangena Praptoham brahmaputratam. Ladies. Tavadasyamaham jage Tatrapi brahmavadinam Shushrushayanusangena Praptoham brahmaputratam. Tavat, since being cursed. Dasyam, in the womb of a maidservant. Aham, I. Jagye, took birth. Tatrapi, although, being a Sudra. Brahmavadinam, unto persons well conversant with the Vedic knowledge. Shushushaya, by rendering service. Anusangena, simultaneously. Praptaha, obtained. Aham, I. Brahmaputratam, a birth as the son of Lord Brahma in this life. Translation. Although I took birth as a Shudra from the womb of a maidservant, I engaged in the service of Vaishnavas who were well versed in Vedic knowledge. Consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as a son of Lord Brahma. Please repeat. Although I took birth as a Shudra from the womb of a maidservant, I engaged in the service of Vaishnavas who were well versed in Vedic knowledge. Consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as the son of Lord Brahma. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says in Bhagavad Gita 9:32, Mami partha vyapashrutya yepi suya papa yonaya striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepi yanti param gatim. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Shudras, workers, can approach the supreme destination. It doesn't matter whether a person is born as a Shudra, a woman, or a Vaishya. If he associates with devotees repeatedly or always, sadhu sangena, he can be elevated to the highest perfection. Narada Muni is explaining this in relation to his own life. The Sankirtan movement is important, for regardless of whether one is a Shudra, Vaishya, Mleccha, Yavana, or whatever, If one associates with a pure devotee, follows his instructions, and serves the pure devotee, his life is successful. This is bhakti. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. Bhakti consists of serving Krishna and his devotees very favorably. Anyapilashita Shunyam. If one has no desire other than to serve Krishna and his devotee, then his life is successful. This is explained by Narada Muni through this practical example from his own life. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Though I took birth as a Shudra from the womb of a maidservant, I engaged in the service of Vaishnavas who were well versed in Vedic knowledge. Consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as a son of Lord Brahma. So Narada Muni, in this section of the Bhagavatam, he's describing his previous life as Upabharana. That was millions and millions of years ago, before, in another lifetime of Brahma, because Brahma lives for a very long, millions and millions of years. His one day is like 1,000 ages. So we can imagine how many millions of years is his lifetime. So in a previous lifetime of Brahma, Narada Muni was actually a Gandharva. He was living in Gandharva Loka, and his he had a very beautiful body, and he was singing very beautifully, and he was surrounded by beautiful women in the heavenly planets. So one day he was invited to a Sankirtan party, a Kirtan party, and instead of glorifying the Supreme Lord, he started singing songs about the demigods and glorifying the demigods. And because of this offense, he was cursed by the Prajapatis to take birth as a Shudra on earth. So the demigods cursed him to take birth as a Shudra. And Prabhupada, in the purport of that verse, he emphasizes that Kirtan means glorifying the Supreme Lord, not any demigod. So it's important to understand this point, because Narada Muni was cursed for performing Kirtan, glorifying the demigods. So it's not so good. So then in his next life, he took birth as a Shudra from a womb of a maidservant. And this is actually also described in the first canto, in the 5th chapter. Narada Muni is describing it to be, so in this chapter, he's describing it to Yudhisthira Maharaj, but in the first canto, he's describing it to Vyasadeva. And he describes how he was engaged in the service of the great devotees called the Bhaktivedantas during the 4 months of the rainy season of Chaturmasya. So in those 4 months, he managed to take the remnants of their food, So like we get Mahaprasad from the deities, but when that Mahaprasad is eaten by devotees, that becomes Mahaprasad. So it's actually more potent. So Narada Muni, in that form as a little boy, he was only like 5 years old. He took the remnants of the Bhaktivedantas, and also he heard their Krishna Katha from them. He was hearing all about their Krishna's pastimes and the process of bhakti from these great devotees. And because of this, all his sins were eradicated, and he started developing bhakti in his heart, and he developed a taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And so, because he attentively heard Krishna Katha from them every day, by their mercy, he was like getting a taste for hearing and chanting effortlessly. He wasn't trying to force himself, but he was effortlessly getting a taste for hearing and chanting. And so within 4 months, by doing this, he developed prema. He actually developed pure love for Krishna. So this is the power of such great association. We can't underestimate it. What would take millions of lifetimes to attain, he attained in 4 months just by the remnants of these great souls and by hearing from them. And because also it's important to note he didn't commit any offences, because offences actually stops our progress. So because he didn't commit any offences, he was submissive, he was humble, and he strictly followed them with his body and mind. Then they bestowed upon him the most confidential knowledge of pure bhakti, so he could actually gain that transcendental knowledge from them because of his good qualities. And after they left, the Narada Muni, so he was only 5 years old. His mother, showered him with affection because he was the only son. So you can imagine he wasn't independent at all. But one day his mother was bitten by a serpent. And so Narada Muni saw this as Krishna's arrangement. So he left home, he travelled through different towns, villages, forests, jungles, mountains. And he travelled alone, so, I can imagine a 5-year-old boy just travelling alone through all this dangerous forests and jungles and mountains. And he started to do meditation under a banyan tree. And then when he meditated on the super soul in the heart, then because he was feeling so much separation from the Lord, then the Lord appeared it's described on the lotus of his heart. And so he got darshan of Krishna, so Krishna appeared to him. And then suddenly, the Lord disappeared again. So he gave him a glimpse of himself, and then he disappeared. So no matter how Narada Muni tried to meditate again, he couldn't see that form of the Lord, because it's not a mechanical thing. It's by the Lord's mercy we get his darshan. It's not like a mechanical thing that we do this and we'll get that result, So then the Lord spoke to him and he said, "You will not see me again in this lifetime. Those who are incomplete in service, immature, and not free from material taints cannot see me. I showed myself to you once just to increase your desire for me. The more one hankers for me, the more he will be freed from material desires." So the Lord, he showed himself to increase the hankering of Narada Muni for the Lord. And so then the Lord then glorified devotional service. And the Lord said that by service to the Lord and the devotees, even for a short time, one becomes firmly fixed in Krishna and can become associate of the Lord. So, and even the time factor can't destroy one's devotional service. So whatever devotional service we do, it can't be destroyed. It's for our eternal benefit. So then the Lord gave Narada Muni the benediction, "By my mercy, your memory will continue even at the time of creation and annihilation." So that's how Narada Muni could remember his past life, after millions of years. We can't even remember what we did a week ago. So, by the Lord's mercy, he could remember, even in a previous lifetime of Brahma, he could remember what he was. So then the Lord left, and Narada Muni repeatedly chanted and glorified the Lord's name, and he travelled. And then in due course of time, he left that body behind, and when he quit that material body, he got a spiritual body, and he became an associate of the Lord. Then he became Narada Muni. So at the end of that lifetime, he entered, at the end of lifetime of Lord Brahma, everything enters into Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu. All the universes, all the living entities enter into the body of Mahavishnu until the next creation takes place. So then in the next creation, that boy became Narada Muni. He became a son of Lord Brahma. So, and then since then, Narada Muni just travels because he has a spiritual body. He's not restricted just to stay in this material world. He travels through the material universes, through the spiritual world, and he's like a liberated spaceman. Prabhupada calls him a liberated spaceman. And he continually glorifies Krishna. And he has a veena that he plays, and he's always playing his veena, and he's traveling throughout the universes, glorifying Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes. And he's so exalted, Narada Muni, he's always preaching Krishna's glories to everybody and anybody, And if you look through the Bhagavatam, so many places Narada Muni pops up in so many pastimes. You know, he's like the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, who's the original compiler of all the Vedas. He's the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, and you know he's giving direction. Like here, he's giving directions to Yudhisthira Maharaj and Prachini Barishat Maharaj, and then he also transferred so many sinful persons into great devotees. So we hear about Magrari the hunter. He was like killing animals, half killing them, leaving them lying around. And Narada Muni told him that he shouldn't do that. And he told him to, you know, plant a tulsi plant and chant in front of this tulsi plant. And this Magrari the hunter became a great Vaishnava, you know. And also the sons of Kuvera, we hear that pastimes of Lord Damodar, where Nalo Kuvera and Manigriva, the sons of Kuvera, they were really intoxicated by their false prestige, you know, they were really proud of their position as sons of the treasurer of the demigods, and they were intoxicated. And Narada Muni cursed them to become trees. But he also gave them the benediction that Krishna would come and he would, you know, liberate them. So, and also there was a robber or a dacoit called Ratnakar, and he was, you know, robbing people, killing them for some money to maintain his family. And then one day Narada Muni came and told him, you know, you realize that you're performing all these sinful activities and you will have to suffer for them. And as your family members going to help you with that suffering, are they going to help share that suffering with you in hell? So he went and asked his family members, will you help suffer the bad karma that I'm accruing? And they said, no, we don't want to share that with you. So then this Ratnakara realized that his family members who he's doing all this for are not going to help him. So then he surrendered to Narada Muni, and eventually he became Valmiki Muni, the one who wrote the Ramayana, because of Narada Muni's association. Just that moment's association of a pure devotee changed his whole life, you know. So Narada Muni is such a great example for us all. It doesn't matter, you know, what situation we're in, whether, like in Prabhupada in the purport, he says, it doesn't matter whether we are born as Shudra, Vaishyas, women, doesn't matter. As long as we associate with devotees, if we can get the remnants of devotees, we can hear from the pure devotees, then we can be elevated to pure devotional service. So this story of Narada Muni should give us great hope that, you know, like here it says in the purport, that it doesn't matter whether a person is born as a Shudra, a woman, or a Vaishya. If he associates with devotees repeatedly or always, he can be elevated to the highest perfection. Narada Muni is explaining this in relation to his own life. The Sankirtan movement is important, for regardless of whether one is a Shudra, Vaishya, Mlecha, Yavna, or whatever, if one associates with a pure devotee, follows his instructions, and serves the pure devotee, his life is successful. This is bhakti. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. Bhakti consists of serving Krishna and his devotees very favorably. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. If one has no desire other than to serve Krishna and his devotee, then his life is successful. This is explained by Narada Muni through this practical example from his own life. So Narada Muni, we can see how great a great devotee he became, a great preacher. Just by that association of those pure devotees, he got the remnants of their food. He heard from them about the Lord. And also it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the remnants of devotees has so much potency. There's a nice place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which describes this great devotee called Kalidas. Kalidas was a great devotee, and he always took the remnants of devotees. He had so much faith in this, and that's why he received Lord Chaitanya's mercy, because Lord Chaitanya wouldn't let anyone drink the water that was washed his feet. But one time he was in Jagannath Puri temple, and they were bathing his feet, and Kali Krishnadas came and drank that water from the Lord's feet, And the Lord allowed it because he had so much faith, you know. And so this, he got special mercy from Lord Chaitanya. I just want to describe a little of Kalidas. Kalidas was a great devotee. He had so much faith in prasad of Vaishnavas. He used to somehow or other try to get the remnants of devotees, and because of this faith, Lord Chaitanya was so pleased with him and allowed him to drink the water that had bathed his feet, although he was this was strictly prohibited by him in general. And Kalidas, what he would do, he would go to devotees' houses, he would offer them some fruits or, you know, some nice fruits like mangoes, and then he would leave them to eat it. He would hide somewhere in a bush outside, and then once the devotee would have ate the mangoes or whatever fruits, they would throw it outside, you know, in the rubbish heap, with the compost heap. And Kalidas would come and he would take those peels and pips and he would suck on them. And this is how much faith he had in the remnants of devotees. He would hide and do that because he knew that they wouldn't allow him to do that. So we're so fortunate to be in this Krishna consciousness movement. We have got so much mercy, you know. If we have the desire for it, the mercy is there. You know, we can get remnants of devotees. We can hear from them on the internet. We can hear so many lectures on Krishna from pure devotees. And so, if we keep the association of devotees, then our success is guaranteed. This is what Prabhupada says. Our lifetime is successful. And even if we don't have such a strong desire for Krishna, if we're in the association of devotees who have got that strong desire, then we will be pulled along with them. You know, it's like this described that in a Kumbh Mela, you know, everyone's trying to go in one direction and they're going to go bathe in the confluence of the Ganges, you know, that special place. And even if you're trying to go the other direction, you can't, you'll be pushed along with everybody else. So that's why we really need the association of devotees who've got a lot of faith, who are strong in their Krishna consciousness, so that we can be pulled along with them. Otherwise, it's very difficult on our own, because we can easily divert, we can easily deviate, and we can easily get distracted. But if we're in a crowd of devotees that are going towards Krishna, then it's going to be very difficult to, you know, go the opposite direction. So the Lord has given us, Prabhupada has given us such a wonderful movement so that we can actually perfect our life and take advantage of this. So we have to develop this greed. We have to develop the greed for devotional service, for hearing and chanting about Krishna. Then we'll manage, just like Narada Muni, he developed this greed, this taste for hearing and chanting from hearing from these great souls. And that way he actually got that mercy. And so this is how we can make very spiritual advancement very quickly, you know, through the mercy of Vaishnavas, because their mercy, by the mercy the spiritual master, one receives the mercy of Krishna. So when we receive mercy of pure devotees, we get Krishna's mercy very easily. Because when we serve Krishna, we're not really sure if we've pleased him or not. We're not sure. But if we serve pure devotees, then we're guaranteed, we know for sure that Krishna is pleased. So that's how we know, that's how it's actually safer in one sense, because we know that that's definitely going to please Krishna. So is there any questions or comments at this point? Yes, Jeannie. Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, Jeannie. Would you like to say anything? Comments? Thank you.
get realizations that I never would have got just on my own, somewhere out of the temple. So you're absolutely right. Just the association is so important to push you along. It requires miles, whereas you would have been walking those same steps very slowly on your own.
Yeah.
How do we, in the nectar instructions of the Swami, it says that we need to overlook seemingly superficial faults that a devotee has. He's giving advice how to associate with devotees, how to respect all devotees, but at the same time also to be able to discriminate and say who's the Kanishta, who's the Majjhima, who's the Bhutanadhikari. So how does a devotee learn how to do that, how to associate in a proper way?
Well, through all those, we still have to offer respects. Doesn't really matter if one is a Kanishta, Majjhima, Uttama. The whole point is there's different levels of respect, but it's all respect still. It doesn't say that you shouldn't respect a Kanishta. It's still we respect a Kanishta. We still offer obeisance within our minds, right? So the whole point is we have to develop respect, proper respect for Vaishnavas. It doesn't matter what they are, whether they're Kanishta, Majjhima, or Uttama. And that way we're safe. We may not associate so closely with those that are not so strong in their faith, but we still offer them respect because they're on the path of devotional service. They're still devotees. They're just like a ripe mango and an unripe mango. So the unripe mango is still a mango. It's just in an unripe state. So, and then when it becomes ripe, it becomes a ripe mango. So it's still a mango. It's just in a different state. So we still offer respects because they're still a devotee of the Lord.
Jagannath Maharaj was in a class yesterday at Anand, and he was saying how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he starts off by offering respect to any devotee that even reads that Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he's saying even though such an elevated devotee, he's literally bowing down to anyone who might have just happened to receive the book, read a bit of the book. So he's taking their mercy, their blessings. And then Jagannath Maharaj finished the lecture by saying, I'm just here to take blessings from all of you. So it's just so humble.
Yeah, this is the sign of a pure devotee. He's very humble. And so that's how advanced devotees behave. They offer respects to everyone, even to the ant. You know, so why would they not offer respects to a devotee? You know, so we have to see, you know, a pure devotee as he advances, he sees everyone as better than him. You know, that's the mood that he has. So that's how we develop humility. That we offer respect. It starts with respect. You know, we respect everyone, regardless of who they are. Whatever, whether they're, you know, it's like whether they're Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmana, whether they're a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, we offer all respects. Maybe different degrees of respect is given, but we still offer respects. That's the main thing. Is that okay?
Just a quick one before were you going to say something? Sorry. Just on that note, as well, on Sankirtana, I had a few realizations where it's like, if you offer respect to someone, then they remember that they're a soul. Because so much of the material world is like people disrespecting each other. So if you offer that respect to someone, then it kind of wakes them up to like, oh, I'm worth something, I'm a spirit soul. So you might have to take a battering for it. They might not accept your respect, but that's okay. But it might just trigger them to wake up. Like when I first came to the temple, like someone just like took obeisance. I was like, that's trying to bow down to me. And then I was like, it made me cry because it was just like, well, like I'm a soul. I'm worth something because I'm connected to Krishna.
Yeah, because the Vedic culture is a culture of respect. So that's why if in the material world, you know, there's so much like nobody wants to respect anybody else. They all want to be better than everybody else. But in spiritual life, it's the opposite. we want to offer respects to everyone, and we offer service to everyone, you know, and we think they are better than us. You know, the whole point is we have to develop humility, not pride. So it's the opposite of the material world, and it's like we're trying to become das and udas and udas. This is what we're trying to develop, the mood of servant of the servant of the servant. But in the material world, it's like we want to become boss and a boss and a boss. We want to become the boss of the boss of the boss, right? But that's not what it's, the whole point in spiritual life is we want to become the servant of the servant of the servant. And that humility endears us to Krishna. That's what attracts Krishna, is our humility and our desire to become the servant of the servant of the servant. Not that we want to directly, connect with Krishna, but we want to be a connection to a servant of the servant of the servant. And that way we're actually more dear to Krishna, because that's what Krishna likes. So we have to understand what Krishna wants and what he likes, what he prefers, you know, not what we want. So, and even Krishna himself, personally, when he's present on the earth, he shows from his own example how to offer respects, you know. So he would offer respects to so many sages and saints that come, and to show us how we're supposed to behave towards great souls, great devotees. And there's so many beautiful pastimes that Krishna shows from his own example, how to offer service to Vaishnavas, how to offer respects, you know. In the Rajasuya Yajna, Krishna was washing everyone's feet, all the sages' feet, you know. Everybody else got the other services, like somebody was a treasurer, looked after all the gifts that were brought, somebody looked after the guests, somebody did cooking, but Krishna took the service of washing the feet of the sages and the saints. So this is Krishna's humility, you know. So he was setting a personal example of how he wants us to do, how he wants us to respect Vaishnavas. So Krishna's very kind, he's very humble. You know. You've got a question?
Oftentimes I notice when you Sankirtan or even in the temple sometimes it gets very difficult, and then when it stops to be enjoyment for ourselves, then only then we kind of like that. That's when it starts to, it stops to be like enjoyment for ourselves, but it starts to be okay. We're offering for Krishna, you know, because Krishna wants to want me to go and do Sankirtan. It wouldn't be Krishna, then that's not what I do. Even though I'm not having any good day or not having no fun, you know, this is what I'm going to do. And I've noticed only when when that fun stops, then you're like, okay, now we have why we start offering something.
Yeah. In the beginning, we may want to do it because we find some pleasure in it, you know, like with the chanting, with the kirtan, with the sankirtan, with anything, you know. We do it because it gives us some pleasure. But then as we advance, we'll do it, even if it doesn't give us pleasure, we'll do it to please Krishna. And it's difficult, or, you know, our mood will change that we're doing it for Krishna's pleasure more than our pleasure. So, and that's like, you know, like Arjuna, you know, he didn't want to fight in the battlefield. He didn't want to fight his relatives, but he did it to please Krishna. So that's, you know, he didn't do it for his own enjoyment. He did it for Krishna's pleasure. So that's what we have to start to do in the end, that, you know, it's an acquired taste. But we develop it because we're doing it for Krishna's satisfaction. And then ultimately we'll become satisfied by that when Krishna is satisfied. So if we're just doing it for our own pleasure, then we'll get some satisfaction, but it won't be a deep satisfaction. It'll be flickering, you know, because it's to satisfy our senses. So I read something interesting. There's a difference between emotion and devotion. So emotion is that we'll do it if we're in the mood to do something, and it's very flickering, not steady, you know, depends on our mood, depends on how we feel. But devotion is you've made a commitment and you're going to stick to that. Doesn't matter what the externals are, doesn't matter what happens, you'll do this dutifully to please the other person, you know, to please Krishna. So we have to get from an emotional service to devotional service, really, because emotional service is very fleeting. It's like one day we feel like doing it, one day we don't feel like doing it, and it depends on the circumstances we're in, depends on our mood, depends on all these different things. But devotional service is, no matter what it is, no matter what the circumstances, no matter how we feel, we'll do it to please Krishna. So that's devotional service. So, yes. Well, sometimes it's like the mode of goodness, you know, like you're doing it out of, I mean, first of all, it's out of duty. You know, we have to do things out of duty, so circumstances doesn't matter, you know, we still have to do this, we have to do the needful. But then higher than that is, we're actually, you know, kind of getting some pleasure out of doing it as well for Krishna. It's not just a duty anymore, we're actually kind of happy to do it, you know. We're not begrudging it. So we can transcend that, you know, like on Sankirtan. Sometimes, I remember in Sankirtan, it was freezing cold, the weather was terrible, and it was pouring with rain, but somehow when I was distributing books, I was getting so much pleasure and I couldn't stop. And the whole day it was pouring with rain, and at the end of the day, my socks had got so wet, the shoes had a dye in it, so when I took my socks off, my feet were black because of the rain that had gone through. But it was actually so blissful that I couldn't stop doing it. It was an amazing experience. But we can experience that we can transcend these like material sort of, you know, you call it obstacles or our mind. We can transcend the mind. We just, because we're so used to listening to it, we're thinking that, you know, that this is it. But you can actually transcend the mind and find a higher happiness and bliss, you know. And when you're pleasing Krishna, you get so much satisfaction. And when we're pleasing Srila Prabhupada, by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, then there's so much taste in that you can actually transcend the weather, the amount of time you're on the streets. You know, sometimes we just stay out all night, you know, doing books. We didn't feel that we were so tired. It's just an amazing experience, but you can actually transcend it. Even in our, you know, neophyte stage, we can do that. Never mind if we're on a higher stage, you know. So it is there. Just have to experience it yourself, you know. Have you got any experiences on Sankirtan that you can say that you feel the same? That there was some times where you forgot the time and you just in a marathon. Have you experienced such things? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oftentimes, just diagnosis goes very quickly when you're connecting to them.
Mm.
But if you're not, then actually you make it worse.
Yeah. So if we're not like in the right consciousness, anything can be really bad. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be like the most torturous thing for us. But if we're in the right consciousness, then it doesn't matter what it is. It can be very, very blissful. So I think it depends on our consciousness, how we, react to things and how we perform our service. We have to switch our mindset to the proper way. And even when we're chanting, or whatever we're doing, whatever service it is, if we're in the right consciousness, we can actually get more benefit from doing it because we're doing it in a proper mood, in the proper consciousness. So if we're going to do it anyway, we might as well do it in the proper consciousness. We're going to have to spend the same amount of time doing it. So why waste that time? Why not do it in the proper consciousness? You're going to have to spend that time anyway doing it. So, and we'll make more advancement quicker that way.
It's about ignoring the mind sometimes as well. Because there's a point when you're chanting, when you're reading, but the mind is like, okay, just get to this level, let's stop, grab my rest, and then we'll do some more reading in an hour. And then I just noticed I ignored that, and then the next verse was like the most interesting, and I was like trying to dig sound from it, and there was like a lot of mercy, and Krishna was like teaching me deeply, like ignore the mind, just like don't give into it. And with the chanting as well, it's like, okay, right, we'll just mantra start to lunch or something. And it was just like, no, I'm going to finish my rounds. I said I'll finish this round. There's a rule, you finish your rounds. And then like the experience from that, just after ignoring the rounds, was a lot more purifying than otherwise. So I've not had that experience before because I'm usually quite tuned into my mind and I follow what it says. But here it's like, I'll disconnect for a minute, which is helpful.
Yeah. The mind is very, very difficult to control. It's very, very powerful. That's why we have to fill it with Krishna, as much Krishna as you can, so that it just calms down. It just doesn't become so strong-willed. And that's why we really need to hear and chant and read Prabhupada's books so that the mind can calm down and just stop being so like a naughty child, wanting to do this. So, okay, thank you everyone for attending the class. And Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Iskon Guruvinda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Godantai Mai Prashishi ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.